Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Migraine Mentors Minicast. I am one of your migraine mentors, Dr. Erik Reis, and I'm pretty excited to talk about today's topic because I think this is something that I get quite often from patients. And I think a lot of people don't really understand it, but they're aware of it. So today we're going to talk about how CGRP triggers migraine attacks and essentially what you can do to treat it at the source. If you're somebody who is taking a CGRP antagonist medication, then you've probably had your provider talk to you a bit about what this is actually doing for you. But I don't think many people really truly understand after those discussions what's actually going on and why CGRP is so relevant to migraine. So, first and foremost, CGRP is calcitonin gene related peptide. And there's a reason why we call it CGRP. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's just like this tiny molecule. And it's actually quite a big voice in the migraine community because it's a pro-inflammatory molecule. This is what all the newest medications are going after, whether it's the CGRP antagonists, whether it's immunotherapies that are based off of this. A lot of organizations and a lot of groups are going after this because of that. But if you're somebody who is following the Migraine Mentors newsletter, you're not here for more meds. You're here to find practical, integrative, and at-home ways to actually help you control CGRP at the source. And so that's what we're here to talk about. So this molecule is really interesting. It's released from the trigeminal sensory nerves. So these are the nerves that innervate and kind of occupy your face. So you have the first branch that goes over the forehead, the second branch that goes above the cheek, then the third branch that comes over your mandible or your jaw. And so these trigeminal nerves all kind of come out as extensions like branches of a tree, but they all converge into this area called your trigeminal nucleus. And so what happens is that when the CGRP is released, it can amplify pain. It can dilate these like blood vessels in your meninges, which is the outer covering of your brain. And it can also just fuel neurogenic inflammation. And what that essentially means is that it's nerve-based inflammation. These are all core features of the neurometabolic cascade of migraine, which is very different than tension headaches or, sinus headaches or seasonal headaches. Once again, migraine is a completely different complex. It's a completely different neurovascular complex than any other form of headaches out there. That's why it's really important to understand that those treatments are going to be very different as well. This is where CGRP gets really interesting, is that these inputs from the face and from the upper neck. So all of the area real estate from your face, and then also all the real estate from the back part of the neck, they all converge to this TCC complex. So this is called the trigemino-cervical complex. And this complex is actually in the brainstem. So if you look at the brain as like a stalk of cauliflower or broccoli, and you cut the cauliflower or broccoli in half, the flowers are kind of like the cortex, the area of the brain that we associate with rationality and being humans. But if you hold on to that stalk, that lower area, that's the brain stem. And in this area of the brain live a lot of things that you don't want to think about, but you really need. These are things like, regulation of your blood pressure, your heart rate, digestion, basic complexes you shouldn't have to put any more bandwidth towards. But those are areas that can actually become affected with migraine attacks. And so this complex is really important because when you activate this area, peripheral production of CGRP actually becomes present. And this is where this whole sensitization component comes with a migraine attack. So there are well-known triggers for pushing CGRP levels to higher states and higher concentrations. We know stress can cause this. We know that oxidative triggers, so whether that's inflammatory triggers from food, your environment, your partner, life, all these things can be triggers for you. Essentially what happens is that you push these stressors, these trigeminal nerve endings push out CGRP. The CGRP gets released, and now you have more pain, more inflammation, and then you have this cascade of this full-blown migraine attack that most people attribute to this whole complex. And so we know that there are also common culprits, environmental culprits specifically. So cigarette smoke, strong perfumes, fragrances, solvents, like diesel, smoke, exhaust, and even specific aldehydes from the environment can actually be triggers for this. So it's really important to understand what the triggers are. And there's some debate as to whether light sensitivity is actually a trigger or it's a symptom that is telling you that a migraine attack is occurring. Now, that's very different than you saying, oh, I smelled someone's perfume and all of a sudden I got triggered, right? So there are facets to that, but I'm not here just to tell you about CGRP. I'm here to tell you about finding natural and integrative ways to lower CGRP's impact on your brain and on your nervous system. So the first and foremost thing is you got to get your steady sleep and you got to get some consistent sleep. We know that better sleep health actually correlates with around 3 to 4 fewer days of episodic migraines a month. For those of you out there who have migraines on a daily or weekly basis, that's a pretty big deal for you. We also show that other studies are actually validating that when you're getting better sleep, you can see decreased migraine frequency, intensity, and duration. So I don't think that surprises anybody who struggles with migraine, but it is an important factor. And just because we're not treating your migraine doesn't mean we're not treating your brain, right? So improving your sleep can have primary, secondary, and even tertiary consequences and benefits for treating your migraine. That's a really important facet. One of the things that you can do outside of just having great sleep hygiene, going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, limiting screen time, not eating within 3 hours and not drinking water within 2 hours. Outside of those measures, two other things can be really impactful. Number one is taking a hot shower before you go to sleep. What this does is this causes your parasympathetic system to dilate and open up your blood vessels. And then when you get out of the shower, the exact opposite happens where you have this chilling, cooling effect. And the thought process is to lower your core body temp to get you into a sleepier state to allow you to kind of glide into that sleep window. And so that's a really important factor. But the other one is the use of melatonin. So depending on where you sit on this, Peter Attia, Dr. Peter Attia with the drive is like, nope, melatonin is probably not doing as much as we thought it was. Or if it's going to be used, you need to put it in really low doses. The data still kind of shows anywhere from like 1 to 3 grams of melatonin 30 to 60 minutes before bed can actually have a narcotic effect. It can help with migraine prevention. It can help lower CGRP in some studies. Inducible nitric oxide is also another factor that can be lowered and improved over time with the use. We also have seen studies that melatonin is a bit lower in people with migraine and during an active migraine attack. Correlations don't always equal causation on that, but that could be a factor there as well too. Melatonin is relatively safe, so I think you're okay probably taking that dose. And if it's not making a difference for you, then kick it out of your protocol, right? The other thing is exercise. Okay. So this is kind of like a torn subject in migraine communities as well. We've written multiple pieces on this for our newsletter, but there's data that shows aerobic exercise 3 times a week can perform just as well as relaxation, mindfulness techniques, and physical activity can actually yield similar benefits to taking like low doses of topiramate, which is a pretty common migraine management medication. And so exercise is just therapeutic for you. It's anti-inflammatory. It'll help you with your sleep. It'll help you with your mood. It'll help you with your metabolic processing. It touches every single facet of our human physiology. And if you could bottle up into a pill, I promise you that your doctor would be giving it to you for your migraines. So studies consistently show that patients who exercise consistently or moderately and within their thresholds have fewer and less migraine attacks. And so something that you can kind of just take to the bank. Exercise is going to be therapeutic for you until it's not. You got to meet yourself with where you're at on that. And so movement really truly is the language of the brain, as Anat Benil has stated, and I've used way too often with this podcast. But what I'm going to tell you is that that really does play a big factor. And lastly, but not least, using different types of foods, supplementation, protocols like that can be very effective. So we know people who have higher omega-3s and lower omega-6s. So higher fish oils, higher healthy fats and lower bad fats. It's been shown to reduce migraine attacks consistently across the board. Vitamin D supplementation, once again, it's not just for bone health. It's been shown to reduce serum CGRP levels, which is really cool. It can dampen inflammation. It has benefits for modulating your immune system. We know it can benefit you on pain signaling aspects. It can support your mitochondria. I mean, the list kind of goes on. If you haven't heard about vitamin D, you've probably been hiding under a rock. Respectfully, if you haven't heard about vitamin D, you should definitely look into it because it's really impactful for so many facets of health today. Curcumin is something that I commonly try and cook with, but if you're somebody who can't cook with it or you don't handle it well, you can always get it in a capsule or pill form. Curcumin or curcuminoids can actually lower CGRP and interleukin-6, which these are both pro-inflammatory mediators, especially for people with migraine attacks. So these are beneficial for just decreasing the frequency and the intensity of migraine attacks, most likely because they have an anti-inflammatory response, which makes a ton of sense. The next thing is like ginger and polyphenols. So, just consuming ginger, whether it's with your sushi or with other foods, these once again have anti-inflammatory benefits. And once again, they affect CGRP production. So another way for you to approach the beneficial effects of lowering that CGRP. Another thing, this is tried and true, B vitamins, especially like riboflavin, like 400 milligrams of riboflavin is kind of the sweet spot for prophylactic, like prevention of migraine. What I'm going to argue and I'm going to tell you is that there's a lot of data and research validating the use of a lot of the other B vitamins. So why not just take all the B vitamins in a B complex and make sure that it's methylated? The methylated version of a B complex is essentially the active form of a B complex. And so you've already activated that for those of you who are poor methylators like myself. If you have an MTHFR mutation, then you don't methylate things as well. And that's like a flashlight turning the light on and off. You can turn genes on and off. You can signal and turn signals on and off. That's that methylation pathway. And so we just suggest taking a methylated B complex. It's the easiest thing to do. You cover all your bases. It helps with inflammatory pathways. It helps with supporting your neurons, and it's going to inherently help you with your migraine attacks as well too. So, and last but certainly not least is just the use of magnesium. 200 to 600 milligrams a day of magnesium to your tolerance, because some forms of magnesium can be a laxative, like in Miralax. There's a laxative aspect to magnesium, but you should be taking magnesium citrate or magnesium threonate or a combination of the above. Threonate goes to the brain. Citrate usually is for the gut. Glycinate can be helpful for the gut in the muscles as well too. But this will help lower CGRP levels. It can help regulate blood vessel function, which is important for migraine attacks. It can help you benefit with neurotransmitter production, improve your sleep, dampen inflammation in the gut and the brain. I mean, the list goes on for magnesium. That's kind of a big spread of things that you can try to lower CGRP levels. Now that you know that, great, good on you. But now it's time to implement it, right? So knowledge is useless without application. So now it's time for you to go try some things, right? So of course, under the supervision of your medical care team, making sure to ask the questions before you get the answers. But these are things that the data is showing. These are things that your doctors should be talking to you about. And if they're not, these are things that you can bring to your doctors to talk about. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Once again, we are the Migraine Mentors. My name is Dr. Erik Reis. We put our newsletter out every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. Central Time. We're posting podcasts. We're doing our newsletter. We're going to start doing more social media posting. And our whole goal is to literally take 20 years of our clinical experience and condense it down into a weekly newsletter to help you take non-pharmacological, non-medication-based approaches to trying to help you overcome your symptoms, take care of yourself, and live your life to the fullest. So I hope to see you again at next week's episode. If you are a subscriber, thank you for your support. We can't thank you enough for that. And if you're not a subscriber, what are you waiting for, right? Go subscribe to our newsletter in the link below, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, any other platforms that we're streaming on. And we look forward to seeing you at the next episode.